welcome. This is the World Mission Update. I'm Rusty Humphreys. That guy, he's Greg Kelly. He's the CEO of World Mission, the finest organization in the world where it comes to spreading the gospel to places where it's not been spread before. Greg, welcome back to the World Mission Update, my friend.
Thanks, Rusty. Great to be with you, buddy. I love how you say that, and I actually believe it with all my heart because I know what we do, and I know that there's just not enough of us as followers of Jesus doing the work in these places where the gospel's never been. So It's something we're passionate about.
Well, and you should be. And I've been there personally. I've seen what it is that you do firsthand, and that's why I have no problem. And I'm going to do it right here at the beginning of the program because I want people to know that if you have a calling to help spread the word of the Lord to the far ends of the world, and you haven't done it, but man, it's a tough time. Money's tight. I don't know who I should send the money to. I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've been there. I've watched how Greg and his team at World Mission operate, and it is truly, I can't think of a better way to do it. I've been with a lot of organizations. I've seen a lot of charities at work, and I can tell you that the money that is going to World Mission is not being wasted. It is going to the right places, and the things that you're doing with it, Greg, are really unique in some ways, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're going into these places, Rusty, I mean, if we're talking about places that have never had the gospel in them, there's reasons for that. I mean, it's not that we don't care or we don't have a concern for their eternal destiny. It's not anything like that. The reason is that there's barriers into these places. And so as followers of Jesus, the Lord gave us a mind just like he gave us a heart. And we have to look at those and say, what is that barrier? And so we deal individually. When we're in Indonesia, it's a different set of barriers than it is in northern Nigeria that we're going to talk about today. And so we have to adapt to that and sort of incorporate the proper strategy. Now, we never sort of water down or move away from the treasure. Of course, our solar-powered audio Bible is always involved in that strategy, but we have different ways in which we engage these cultures, and I think that's what, in many ways, sets us apart.
Yeah, and, I've seen also the joy. I mean, at first there's a little trepidation. What is this that this weird guy's given? Now, first of all, Greg's out there, and he's all excited and stuff, and they're kind of looking at him going, okay, I don't know what this guy's on, but he's on something. I'm sure it's good. And then, you start talking with them, and then you hand them this, I don't have one in my hand, but, it's a solar-powered Bible. So that's right there. And it's like, okay, well, it's a free toy. Great. Yeah. And then you start showing them what it is, and that you can hear things, and all of a sudden they're listening to it. And then you also show them, hey, there's a flashlight, and there's some other cool things too. And all of a sudden they feel special just because you handed it to them.
Yeah, and we don't charge people. We give these away freely. The Word of God is for everybody. And so when we go to the extent of putting it in audio, because most of these places, they're not reading. That is one of the barriers, right, Rusty? You and I saw that. Yeah. The oral learners, people who are illiterate, they're going to appreciate a printed book if you give it to them, and they might even cherish it and take great care of it. But it's not going into their heart because they can't read, or that's not the preferred way of learning. So
I think the other thing is, it's not that they're dummies in any way. It's they're a lot more worried about food and their kids than they are learning the ABCs of their language.
Yeah. They'll say that in Africa, when an elder passes away, a library is lost. And that library gets passed on through stories. That's their culture, the oral culture, which is interesting. That's how it all started. Mm-hmm. Back in Jesus' day, everything was oral. Everything was told by stories. And I think we've gotten away. Sometimes, I think maybe we've over-intellectualized Christianity. Christianity, it's not just about emotion. That's not what I'm saying. It's a relationship, and it's about what has God done in your life, and that is only conveyed through a story. Let me tell you, I was lost, but now I'm found. I was in the darkness. Now I have light. Well, what does that look like? And so as people share their individual personal testimony, that's what the gospel's all about.
That's awesome. Well, you wanted to talk a little bit about Africa. Oh, and by the way, if you would like to help, please go to worldmission.cc. You can see it right there on the bottom of the screen, worldmission.cc. See what they're doing at World Mission and how you can help. Africa is on your mind today, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, it really is, Rusty. I've been reading some new things. We do a lot of work in Africa. Our work is pretty equally divided, about 50% of it in Africa, the other 50% in Asia. And so when you think about Africa, I think about the collision of cultures, because it's primarily in Asia, you have Hinduism, you have Buddhism, you have Islam and Christianity. Africa is almost exclusively Islam and Christianity, with the exception of a little animism. And right. You'd be hard pressed to find a Hindu or a Buddhist. They're there, but they're very much the minority.
Let's show we've got a quick little map here of Africa right over your shoulder right now, where you can see what the difference of the Muslim majority religious conflict and the Christian majority is.
So it's really interesting, Rusty. It's not quite that black and white as far as north and south, but that's very accurate from the standpoint of the majority part of the continent of Africa is 99% Muslim in most places. And then sub-Saharan Africa, quite honestly, is a tremendous testimony and victory in so many ways for the gospel expansion. Because 100 years ago, when you'd go into that whole green area that is now Christian majority, Congo, Zambia, Mozambique, a lot of these countries, Kenya is a good example of it too. You have places where nobody was a Christian 100 years ago. And because of missionaries who went there and now national leaders, it's majority Christian. And so that's a real victory. But the issue today is we need to continue to move forward. And when I say, I'm not talking about a battle. This is not any kind of a war or anything like that, friends. This is about sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and giving people an opportunity to respond to Christ. And that's what they lack right now in so many of those places. Algeria, Libya, Morocco, northern Nigeria, they do not have access to the gospel. That's why we go in there.
All right. And so as World Mission goes into those places and you're working with your partners, those are local people who have found Christ, and now they're so excited about it, they want to share it with others. You are seeing progress in a lot of places.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, even like places like Nigeria, that almost falls right in the, that is literally in the green, yellow, kind of red. Nigeria falls right there in that area. They say if you were to take Africa, and as you look at the continent of Africa, it kind of looks like an upside down gun almost. And if you were to turn that right side up, Nigeria literally would fall at the trigger. And so the southern part of Nigeria, they really embrace that. They say, hey, we're the trigger of Africa. It's no joke, because within our lifetime, Nigeria will become the third most populated country in the world. It will exceed the United States of America. So it is a big player on the world scene. You're talking about soon there'll be 400 million people in Nigeria. Not yet, but they're trending. Demographically, we know that's the direction they're going. They'll only be behind India and China. And then it's Nigeria. And so it's a very important country for us to think about, and not only just from that standpoint, their influence, but from the standpoint of where they're located in proximity to that collision that's taking place, Christianity and Islam.
Let's talk about the collision, because it is difficult. It's not like everybody's holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Hey, you're Muslim brother, how you doing? Christian, nice to meet you. It's not that way in a lot of places, is it?
Now, in that northern part of Nigeria, like much of North Africa, there's these anti-conversion laws. There's laws that criminalize blasphemy and also apostasy, which is the changing of one religion. There's no freedom in Islam when you're going in northern Nigeria and most of North Africa from a standpoint of, I want to change. Hey, God's touched my heart. I believe in Jesus. I believe he's the Son of God. I believe the New Testament. I believe in the life, in the saving power of Jesus Christ. Mom and Dad, I'm leaving Islam and I am going to become a follower of Jesus. If you do that, Rusty, they will cut you off from society entirely at best. Many instances, because of the shame that the Muslim family feels that it comes upon themselves. I could tell you dozens of stories of just people I know, and that's just in our world at World Mission, of individuals who have become followers of Jesus and their family has either attempted to kill them, just entirely shun them and cut them off because of the shame that it brings upon them, or the perception of the shame. The imams are looking, you didn't raise your son properly. That would be the pressure they put on them. And so there's a lot of dynamics that are involved in there. And Nigeria is at ground zero of that collision.
One of the things that we take for granted is that quote unquote separation of church and state, even though that wasn't really what Thomas Jefferson wrote about. That's a whole different story. But we take that for granted that, hey, you can believe what you want to believe and you can believe what you want to believe. There is no such thing as separation of church from state in the Quran. The Quran teaches you how to live, teaches you how to print money, it teaches you how your government's supposed to act. It's all in there. And so you're dealing with some very different cultural experiences, I would think.
Yeah, and I don't want to give the perception that all Muslims are radical like that, because I think that there are Muslims that are more reasonable and more like tolerant of Christianity, but in these places in North Africa, that's not necessarily their MO. They are very radical from a standpoint of these laws. Again, I mean, if you convert, there's laws in Algeria and Libya. And there's states in northern Nigeria, it's punishable by throwing you in jail because you defiled the Quran. You have become an infidel. And so there's literally laws in Sharia courts, and we've heard about that in the past, where there's punishment that literally by the law they can impose on you for converting from Islam. So there's not a lot of tolerance in many of these places in northern Africa and northern Nigeria where we're working. But here's the thing, Rusty, because people might ask this question, well, why do you even go there? I mean,
why even go there?
Well, that's a great question. And the truth is, we have workers that have been killed, that have been kidnapped, that we don't even know where they're at in northern Nigeria. And you say, well, why would you go back in there? Because Jesus called us to go to all nations. And at the end of the day, Rusty, and truth be told, I love Muslims. Everybody I work with and we work with at World Mission and our partners, they love Muslims. They pray for Muslims. Someone who is a follower of the Quran and a Muslim is no more lost than your next door neighbor who hasn't received Jesus, who's been in a Christian culture their whole life. There's no they're a lot worse than these people. Now, none of us like to hear about the stories of the executions and the kidnappings and the horror of these radical groups. No one likes to hear that, but they're no less saved than our next door neighbor, our grandpa or grandma, or someone who has a hard heart, who's a good person. And so we need to take the gospel into these places because nobody's doing it, Rusty.
Right.
Nobody's going in there.
All right, we've got some pictures of places that you have been. This first picture, it looks like a bunch of folks are looking over something, and they're interested in something. They're amazed about something.
They are amazed about something. Inside of that swarm of people is one of these. It's playing the Hausa language, which is spoken by tens. It's the trade language of northern Nigeria. And they're listening to the Hausa word of God. Most of the people in that photo there are illiterate or oral learners. They prefer to learn in a non-literate way. And the buzz about the treasure as it plays, they're expecting maybe something in English or French, but when it plays their language, so many times we'll hear the testimony, your God speaks my language. And it just touches our heart, motivates us to send a lot more out there.
Our next picture is somebody leaning over, maybe a doctor helping a young woman.
So one of the strategies, as I had said, when you're going into these places, just to kind of show up with a megaphone and intensity of sharing the gospel isn't going to get it done. You're not going to win anyone's heart. You're not going to capture anyone's mind. They want to know you care. I'm a human being, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, I am a human being. I'm a dad. I'm a mom. When my child hurts, I hurt. I grieve over sickness and things like, not having access to sanitation and clean water. Medical ministry is a phenomenal inroad into the hearts of these radical Muslim areas. Because as I said, if you're a Muslim, even if you're an imam, if your child's sick, you don't care if it's a Christian, Muslim, Hindu who's caring for them. You want your child to get better. And when you do that, when you love people, and this is missionary ministry right here, just loving this young lady who needed physical care, didn't have access to medical facility at all, it changes the dynamics of the heart, and now you can share the gospel.
Yeah, it's amazing. This next one is looks like it's a Nigerian relief. Some guys smiling. You can see golden penny noodles there, and folks looks like they're being helped out.
Yeah. So in a lot of these places, there is these refugee camps that are, because of Boko Haram, in the last 10 years, you've got some 3 million people that have been displaced. 3 million people just in one country. They're not technically refugees because they're not leaving the borders of Nigeria, but they're displaced. And every second, another person is being displaced around the world somewhere. And so this is a refugee camp where there's aid being dispersed. And they're just loving people. These people are coming into these communities and they're receiving aid. They've lost everything. And so, when you're the church and you're administering this, it's something that makes you happy, because you and you're not asking them, hey, show me your Christian card, show me your Muslim card, because I only help the Christians. Now, let me say this, Rusty. The opposite is happening in a lot of these northern Nigerian countries where Christians are being withheld. In fact, there's some camps just like this that are run by Muslims. They won't even allow Christians in.
Wow. So
they totally discriminate against Christians. But we, as followers of Jesus, don't discriminate against anyone. In fact, there's no mandatory, hear the gospel, receive Jesus. No, we're just going to love you. We're going to care for you. We're going to help you because we care about you as a human being. And God so many times uses that as an opportunity to share the good news.
Our next picture is a group of women and children. There's like a bucket or something, but they're sitting listening to something.
This is a lot of times what church planting looks like. This is just the down and dirty, rubber meets the road encounters that you have with people. They're gathered around. Let's remember, northern Nigeria, 70% of the population this is even pre-Boko Haram, 70% of the population of northern Nigeria. Remember, in a few years, it will be the third most populated country in the world. We're talking about millions and millions of people. 70% live on less than $1 a day.
Wow.
So they're not out there running around doing their business in school. Say, what are they doing? It's incredibly impoverished situation, and Boko Haram has just escalated that. And so they're gathered around like this and just going. Someone had the courage to go because it's not easy. I mean, for you or I to hear, hey, you want to go? Let's go to a place where it's very possible you'll get kidnapped. We'll never hear from you again, and you might even get killed. Do you want to go there?
Right.
And we have people lining up to go there. And this is what they're encountering.
All right. The other thing, basic, that they're having a tough time with is water. And you have a number of buckets here lined up. Is that maybe for a well?
That's a new well that we had the opportunity to be a part of making happen. So, when you don't have clean water, again, it goes to the medical, the disaster relief, water. Those are our three expressions of love to these beautiful, precious people. A lot of them are Muslims, and we're okay with that. We go right into Muslim villages, Rusty, and put in a well just like that. Why? Because we love them. Do they have to convert to Christianity? Absolutely not. But they will have an opportunity for the first time in their life to hear about Jesus. And this water opens up that heart wide open because there's propagation, that's going on. These people are told lies. I'm sorry, propaganda. That's the word I was trying to think of. And they're told lies about Christians and all that. And when you come in the authenticity of Jesus Christ and do something like this, there's not a human being that's not going to go, no, why are you doing this?
Right.
Opportunity.
That's beautiful. Our last picture here is there's some tents and a bunch of kids playing. Where is this? That
is one of the dozens and dozens of displaced people, refugee camps in northern Nigeria. There's probably 100 camps that's just a snapshot of what it looks like. Those are children who, many of them, their fathers were killed, their mothers were raped and sexually assaulted, and in some cases right in front of them. Their youth was stolen from them, Rusty, just totally taken from them. And now here they are in these camps. Those tents are the only thing they know. Every possession their family had, gone. Their cows stolen. So it's just amazing to think of the carnage that Boko Haram has caused in northern Nigeria. But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, Rusty, to go into these places and share the good news of Jesus Christ. Because the truth is, as Boko Haram has displaced people, most of the people that have been displaced are from Muslim communities. And they were very difficult to engage prior to Boko Haram. So now as they're coming into these refugee camps, they're accessible, maybe for the first time in history. And so the church needs to mobilize. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we do the World Mission Update, to tell people things that you're not going to hear this on CNN.
No.
They're not going to tell you the end of June, 81 people were just murdered and executed by Boko Haram in an attack. You're not going to hear that there. But
really? I didn't hear that. Really? That many people?
81 people in one attack. They gather people together and they say, we want to teach you something about Islam. They give the charade that they're coming as Muslim teachers, and people honorably, okay, we need to gather together. And as the masses gather together, they pull out the guns and weaponry and start firing and killing.
What is the reason for that?
Well, they're just trying to cause chaos. That's how a lot of ways, that's how they're funded. So they attack these villages, and then on the black market is how they make their money. They're also being funded from radical groups in the Middle East. And they're just trying to propagate a very radical form of Islam. And so they feel justified in their action, and they take the young boys, and sometimes they're forcibly recruited. And the women, the horrific things happen to the women. We've heard about the 200 girls that were kidnapped from that university a few years ago. And so those kind of things happen, and then they get ransoms for the kidnapping, and they get money on that. So it's just really a dark, dark thing that's going on in 2020 that we don't hear enough about. But it's a place that the church needs to be involved in. That's the solution. The solution is not more UN, more international aid agencies going in there. Wonderful, fine. Take care of some physical needs. It's an opportunity for the church to step in and give them the hope.
Well, the hope I have is that you watching this are going to be spoken to, and you have in your heart to donate to this great cause. Because as I said in the beginning of the program, I've never seen an organization as committed to doing the right thing as World Mission is. And so if you would please go to the website and donate, $100, for example. $100 will cover a couple of those Bibles, those treasures, right, Greg? Yeah.
It takes us about $40 to send one in, Rusty. It's in their language. It's recorded in such a way with music and drama. They love it. We saw the group there gathering around. But, maybe God's even talking to people about bigger things. We've got opportunities every day, Rusty. One of our guys, our leader there, just told me for $14,000, they're trying to buy an area that's about the equivalent of 30 acres. So 300 families can move into that area who have been displaced, who have lost everything. Well, everything takes money, and trying to deal in these majority Muslim areas, you know who owns the land and the building. So it's difficult, but we appreciate people who are watching the World Mission Update. And, as you said, if the Lord touches their heart, we love to connect.
And what's amazing that I learned is how a little bit of money can go a long way. Like $10,000 can change the lives of like a village. I mean, it's amazing, and the amount of good that you're able to do, Greg, is just incredible. Let folks know how we can help you out.
Yeah, well, we're just thankful. Rusty and I, we put a lot of time and effort into bringing this to you because we want to encourage you. It's not about money. We want to educate you. If you come away from watching the World Mission Update and maybe there was just some kind of seed that got deposited and you're better off for it. I didn't know that. Great. Successful. Pray for us, would you please? But if the Lord does put it on your heart to help us, we will be great stewards of those resources. Go to worldmission.cc and you can learn how to give there. We'll help Boko Haram affected areas. We'll go to places that nobody else is going into. But you can also share this podcast, the World Mission Update. We'd love for you to share it with friends and family. Easy way to do that. Rusty does a phenomenal job making that easy. So we just appreciate you taking time to join us every week.
Absolutely. So please subscribe, and share, and all those things that will really make a difference. Comment if you're on Apple Podcasts or watching on YouTube or wherever you find us. It does make a difference. So please, we sure appreciate you. Help us spread the message, and please help World Mission by donating some of those very important dollars. Go to worldmission.cc. We sure appreciate you. I'm Rusty Humphries. He's Greg Kelly. We'll catch you next time here on the World Mission Update.